Hello, and welcome back to Girl We Gotta Talk. Today, I am joined by Alexa Cawley. She's a CEO and founder of Forever Friday Consulting, and she's a fellow podcast host of the Friday Society podcast. So I am so excited to chat with her today. We're going to pick her brain on her journey working in marketing for incredible companies and talk about her business now and talk about why she started her own podcast. So, Alexa, welcome to Girl We Gotta Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited that you're here. I'm just excited to pick your brain, learn about your journey. You just seem like such a badass and a go-getter. And I think my listeners are going to love hearing what you have to say on everything. So thank you for joining.
Yay.
I have
Love it.
some random rapid fire questions for you before we jump into everything. So we'll go through these and get your takes. The first one's a little controversial. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Absolutely no.
Oh,
No. No, I am Italian and I feel like my grandmother would roll over in her grave if I said yes. So hard and fast, absolutely no.
Okay, well, I'm Italian and I love pineapple on my pizza, so I don't know what that means for me.
It means, I don't know, maybe you're not getting into Italian heaven or something. I don't know.
What is the last show that you watched?
Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Okay. I'm binging Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce.
Oh my gosh, wait,
On
but isn't that
Bravo.
supposed to be so good? Isn't that
It's
good?
really good. I think, I don't know, I feel like a middle-aged divorcee. No, I'm not when I watch it, but I'm a fan.
I used to see that all the time. Is it still on? Like, what are you watching it on?
I'm watching it on Netflix.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I used to watch that. Like, I would see like bits and pieces of it after whatever show I'd watched. And I'm like, this actually looks pretty comical. Like, it looks pretty good.
It's honestly, it's really just rooted in like female friendships. And it's kind of just like, I don't know, it's nice. It's like all the females in it are strong and like out of relationships. So it's like just focused on just like strong women. And I don't know, I like it. I'm a fan.
I love that. Cool. Who is a celebrity that you would totally be friends with?
That's such a good question. I mean, I think like in my dreams I could party with Kate Moss, but I definitely couldn't because I like go to bed by 10. Um I don't know. Maybe like Jennifer Aniston and I would go to yoga together.
Oh my gosh. Hell yeah.
Know.
And then what is the best compliment you've received? That's a tough one.
Well, that's such a good one. I think, yeah, it's definitely a tough one. I think I always really love people complimenting me on the way I make them feel. So I think a few times I've worked with, just like direct reports and whatnot, and they've always said that they felt heard by me. And that I think that's definitely the best one. Like knowing that you've made someone else feel like safe and supported.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. I always like remember, I forget who told me this when I was little, but they were like, no one's going to remember what you look like. Everyone's going to remember how you made them feel. Like when people think about you, they're not thinking about like, oh my God, she looks so pretty. It's like, oh, she's such a good time. I enjoy being around her. Yeah.
Absolutely. I know. And every time like everyone, especially after COVID, whenever people are like, oh, I gained weight or whatever, I'm like, I just always try to go back to like literally no one is ever even going to think about, let alone remember like the way your waistline was in your jeans. Like that is just so like we think about it all the time, but it is only in our heads. Like no one is ever thinking that.
Nobody. I love that. I think that's such a like important thing to remember. And then the last one is very different. What is your favorite dessert?
I mean, let's just go back to being Italian. Tiramisu, I think,
my
is definitely,
gosh.
yeah.
To die for. Yep.
Love it.
That's a good one. Cool. So I want to jump into sort of who you are, what you have been doing the last couple of years and learn a little bit more about your journey. So you have just been like so successful. You've worked in marketing for very large brands. I'll let you kind of explain that a little bit more. But how, sort of backing up before we get there, how did you, I guess, start on this journey of working in marketing and like landing these roles?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I think it just all goes back to I just really love people. Like I just love human connection and, bonding with people over whatever it is. It turned out that my career was going to be in, fitness and health and wellness. And for me, bonding with other people over health and wellness is just so special. So I went to school for English literature. Like I
Okay.
love writing. I thought I was going to be a writer. And somewhere along the way, I got an internship for a magazine. It was called Orlando Style Magazine. And when I was 19, they sent me to St. Thomas on like a press retreat. It was very lucky. And like, it's funny because at the time I look back and I was pissed that I had to cancel my spring break vacation with my friends. And now I look back and I'm like, oh,
St.
okay, I was
Thomas.
19 and I got to write about a $50 million hotel renovation.
Oh
Like
my
it was so
gosh.
cool. But it was just to go to, yeah, just to be featured in the magazine. And they sent an intern to do it. And there were all these other people on the trip that were writing for other magazines, and they were all were English majors that had then started working in PR or marketing. And so I got some really cool career advice from all of them. It was a really good time, I think, for me to go and to be around other professionals in the space. And a lot of people were like, look, your English major is going to be great, but it ultimately comes down to communication. And if you're an effective communicator, like you can do whatever, and marketing is a really good space for you. And I never really considered that. And then, fast forward a few years later, I graduated college and I was looking for like my big girl desk job and started working for Lululemon actually in the mall. Like the local mall decided I was going to work for Lululemon, while I found this desk job and fell in love with the company. They, in my opinion, do an absolutely fantastic job with community marketing and community building and grassroots marketing. And it was a really interesting moment for me that I was able to see marketing focused on community and relationships as opposed to what you think of, like Excel spreadsheets and budgets and, all like the nitty gritty stuff that I was like, okay, wow, this is marketing. So I stayed with Lululemon, built my way up. And then, yeah, got to work for SoulCycle. And now I have my own company.
Such a cool story. Like, I think that trip, you're probably like, yeah, you look back and you're like, why was I upset about that? But it seems like it led you to everything in your life. Like, that was like the pinnacle of like what was to come. So that's so
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
And it's crazy too when you're in college and you're that age, like I think that it's you think that you know what you want to do and like you were English major and like you were set on that, but it's like talking to other people and sort of like evolving in like what you could like is like so interesting because it's funny that you talk to anyone that goes to college, they're like, well, I don't even really use the degree that I got, but you sort of still do. It's just a different sort of route. And I think that's really cool. What were like, so you said in Lululemon, like you worked your way up, like what were the steps that you took to kind of get higher and higher in the company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I had two people that were really integral in me just moving up. So first was my dad. And I keep in mind I was like 21, I was working at the mall. This wasn't like glamorous dream job territory, I was like restocking clothes, helping people try on pants, and it was fun for sure, but it wasn't like, I didn't feel like I like made it. And I was having dinner with my parents one night and my dad was like, he was like, it's never a bad thing to get promoted. He was like, even if you're not thrilled where you are, it's never a bad thing to just try to get promoted. And I was like, okay, that's a good point. Like, even if I don't see this as my forever spot, let me still try to, just work my way up. And that was really important for me to hear. And then the second was I had a mentor at Lulu, and her name was Alicia, and she was just phenomenal. Like she was really, really great leader. And I always looked at her and I was like, I wouldn't hate it if my life looked like hers. Like she found flexibility. She found she found like the things that she loved to do. And you just saw her kind of living out this awesome life that she had created through the company. And they both of those things, I think, just helped me understand that, like, I found a company that was going to allow me to live out what my dream life was going to look like. And I knew that that was rare. And yes, I was working at the mall at the time, but I kind of just took my dad's advice of like, just try to get promoted. And I did a few times and just was able to keep going and keep creating the journey that I wanted to within the company.
Yeah, that's awesome. How was it like? Did you feel like you needed to get your name out there in the company and like work really hard each time you got promoted? And how did you feel pressure? Like, how was that experience when you did move up and up in the company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, yes, absolutely. A big turning point for me was, when I started working for Lululemon, I was working on Long Island. So I would hop around sometimes from like store to store and help with trainings and things like that. But the biggest turning point for me was when I then got transferred into the city, into New York City, and we opened up the Flatiron flagship location, which was at the time the biggest Lululemon in the United States. And the sales goals were insane. And hiring people, training the team, building out the community, like that was all something that I was involved in and focused on. And that was huge that I met so many different people because there were a lot of eyes on this store opening. So we had tons of people from corporate and from Vancouver, which is where Lululemon is based. They were coming to New York, and I was meeting tons and tons of people that still to this day I'm pretty good friends with, which, just speaks to like Lululemon's hiring, I think. But yes, like there was a lot of pressure, I think, to make sure that I was making a good impression and that I was qualified. Like I think that's a huge thing that people are always like, am I qualified to do this? Am I,
Yeah.
And of course I never felt like I was because I worked in the mall. Like it was sort of this weird cycle of like not thinking I was good enough. And then finally just shifted into just being like, yeah, you know what I am? Like I'm here, so I'm just going to do the best that I can. And yeah, it was a lot of pressure, but was ultimately just a fantastic experience.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That just sounds like such a great time. I feel like you're right. I guess because you did start in a mall, you probably felt smaller than the other people you were working with. Like maybe I don't deserve to be here, but I'm glad that you had that like sort of mindset shift where you're like, you know what? Like obviously I worked hard to get promoted, to move up in the company. Like I do deserve to be here. What were like, what was like a day in the life, like working for Lulu, and like, what were your, I guess, favorite roles when you did like move up?
Yeah. So part of the Flatiron flagship was that we created, it was called Hub 17, and it was like the basement of the store, but it functioned as a yoga studio, an art gallery, like a library slash coffee stand. Like it was a totally non-retail space. And building that out, there was an amazing team of people that were doing that. And it required a lot of community connections. So making sure that you were connecting with the local studios in the area and bringing them in, connecting with local artists, seeing if they wanted to do, some sort of like display on the walls. That was really cool. And I got to work with some amazing people. The woman who led it, her name is Carolina, and she's just absolutely awesome. So I got to really see very cool like creativity at work. And I think that was probably one of my absolute favorite projects to like witness and be a part of.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this has just been like working with other people and like sort of building a community. And you seem like
Totally.
the perfect person to be like, hey, like, come on in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing when
Yeah.
they hired you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I love that. So when did you feel like, I've been at this company long and I like it, but when did you feel like maybe it was time to move on and find something else?
That's a great question. So Lululemon's headquarters are in Vancouver. And from New York, I was so not ready to leave New York at that time. And I still had that inner inkling of like, I need a desk job. Like that to me would be successful, like I don't know
Yeah.
what that is, but in me, I was like, if I am sitting at a desk all day long, every day, like that's success.
I've made it.
Right,
I
exactly.
can't
And
wait for my
so
cubicle. Yeah.
right. And a lot of Lululemon was just like being on the go and, it was interesting. Like there was something in me that I was like, okay, I need this desk job. And then, so I was like, all right, like if I want the desk job for Lulu, I got to move to Vancouver. So that's a no. So like, what am I going to do? And eventually an opportunity came up at SoulCycle to lead the marketing for the tri-state area of New York, Hamptons, New Jersey, all
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
So I took on that role. So I was the regional marketing manager there. I oversaw 26 studios and had 5 direct reports on my team that were handling different areas of marketing within the organization. And so, yeah, so I took that opportunity on in 2018, I think, something like that. No, maybe 2017. I don't know.
Wow, that's so awesome. Oh my gosh. I'm in marketing right now, so that just seems like a dream. Um
Soul
like
Cycle is really big in DC, right?
yes, people love SoulCycle.
Yeah.
I haven't spun. I've never like done it ever.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'd like it a lot. Like I mean, it's obviously people love it, so maybe I should do
Yeah.
it.
It's really fun if you get the right instructor and if you find an instructor that jives with your music.
Yeah, I
Then
think the
it's
music is
like,
key,
oh,
right? You have
yes.
to
Then it's like,
like
it's transformational.
I'm a big music person too. I love to jam, so I feel like it's two of my favorite things, like exercise and music. I don't know why I haven't. Okay, I'm having a realization now. Like, why haven't I done this?
I'll come to
Um,
DC. We'll go.
okay, perfect. That is so awesome. So how was that role for you? Because that seems like a lot more maybe responsibility, like you're looking over other people, and it was a little bit different than Lulu. Like, how was the transition when you went to SoulCycle?
Yeah. So I think the biggest transition was in the way that I managed people. So at Lulu, I was a manager. So I oversaw people who had part-time schedules and were juggling other things. And like there was a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of moving parts. And when I went into Soul, I was overseeing people that were corporate employees and that they were corporate entry level employees, and that was a really big shift for me in that I needed to train them on like the basics of office culture. I think that was like a really interesting sort of segue for me. Um, so I think, yes, there was definitely a lot more responsibility. There was definitely more creativity. The role was not as defined as Lululemon because I think Lululemon just had many more employees at that point. Like we were, and I'd been there for 5 years. Like I'd seen the company sort of really, really expand, whereas SoulCycle had stayed a little bit leaner as a team. Just in general speaking, like all of SoulCycle they just had less employees, so there was more creative freedom and creative ability. So I think the biggest shifts definitely were managing this new team of people, and I had the autonomy to sort of make decisions that were new to me and were really exciting. So it was, yeah.
I love that. That just seems like such a like fun role to be in, and I feel like you seem like you really enjoyed it. What do you think are like the biggest misconceptions when it comes to working for brands like that but in the marketing department? Because
Mm.
I feel like people have this idea of what marketing is, but there's just so much more to it. So what would you like say that those are? I don't know.
I get where you're going. I think I think there is a misconception when you look at a brand that's so well established that they have it all together. And I think that is a really interesting difference between the companies. And I had a great experience working at both. I will say Lululemon did a better job at looking at marketing as a holistic department. They understood that marketing was it was everything. It was having your part-time employees who were just working on the sales floor. It was giving them an amazing discount so that they were wearing Lululemon when they were going to the yoga studio. Like that, I think to many other people would not qualify as marketing, but Lululemon did a really good job at seeing that it was. Like that was free marketing for them to have everybody walking around in the newest, latest, and greatest clothing. And yes, they were giving you a pretty good discount. And so for investors and analysts, for people to look at that, they were like, no, 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 that doesn't make sense. Like you shouldn't give discounts because blah, 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 the bottom line and whatever. And Lululemon did a really good job at seeing the long road of things like that. And they still knew that that was marketing. So that I think was a really interesting thing just in talking about like marketing department. A company like SoulCycle was a little bit younger, and I think they had a hard time quantifying exactly what their marketing department was. So I worked as the regional marketing manager, but I was like half operations and half marketing kind of. Like we had at a certain point we had two managers. So the regional marketing managers reported into both the CMO and the SVP of operations so that everyone could sort of have a handle on what was going on at the studio level and at the corporate level. So I think it's just, I think a younger company sometimes takes a while to define exactly what their marketing department looks like and what their needs are. And many companies never get there. Like that's a really hard thing to sort of define. So yeah, I think like in terms of figuring out the marketing department, I think Lululemon maybe took the cake on that one.
Yeah. No, and I mean, they're geniuses for that because I mean, it's then that goes for any brand. Like as soon as I see someone wearing something and I see the brand, I'm like, oh, and then they're a walking advertisement. And Lululemon is so smart for doing that. And I think that that's important for like companies to understand. Like, yes, they may be, we may be giving them a discount, but it's benefiting us in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. I think like for me and my company, so I work for like an IT solutions provider. And so we work with other IT companies, but a lot of people sort of reference my company as a marketing agency because of how important our marketing department is to other people. And I don't feel like a lot of other companies sort of give their marketing department that sort of respect. I think like our CEO, our company like realizes how vital we are to, the company itself. And I think there's just so much that goes into marketing and there's just a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people do in marketing that, people don't have any idea of. And that I guess right there was one of them is giving that discount and making that small little change. But obviously it's, benefited them in the long run. So yeah, I wanted to get your take on that because I think a lot of people sort of misjudge like what being in marketing is, I guess. Yeah. So as far as like lessons that you've learned working for big corporations like you did, what would you say that those were? Like, did you have any big takeaways from that? And what could you tell, I guess, other people looking to work for big companies like that?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think just going back to what you're saying too about, about marketing, it is you need to find a company that respects marketing's job. And I think a lot of the time, marketing is just the department that takes the brunt of all the problems. Because, if it's a communications, if customer service, for example, is not handling the inquiries the right way, it's marketing's job to come up with brand filters and captions and all the things that like they need to do. But if like sales are bad, then it's marketing's job because they need to get people in. But then marketing will be there being like, no, we need cooperation of everyone in the company to carry out the vision. So by no means is marketing like an easy job. You really have to navigate the requests and the needs, but there's a really, really big component of marketing that's like setting boundaries and setting clear expectations. And a lot of that is absorbed by the marketing department to sort of just say like, hey, here are the canned responses that we abide to. And here are like all the brand filters that we have, but it's not all we can do is tell you what to do, but it's up to the rest of the company to carry that out. It's like, think about like this is a horrible example, but like, think about like Steve Jobs or someone like someone who's a CEO, right? That has some sort of reputation. Someone like an advisor to that company would be like, why isn't marketing getting him a media trainer or whatever? Like that, for some reason, something will always be marketing's fault.
Yeah.
So I think advice for someone who's going into marketing would be, really feel out the rest of the departments in the company too, if it is a big company, and kind of just feel out like the level of respect for the marketing department. Because I think there are definitely certain companies that, you know, just don't really fully value the marketing team and kind of just see them as like the team that's going to get people into the door, and like that's all they exist for. So I think really viewing a company and trying to feel out if they're one that's going to view marketing as integral, or if they're going to view marketing as like a plug and play, like replaceable sort of department.
Right. No, I totally agree. I think too with that, like feel out the environment of the company and just how they
Mhm.
treat every department. Um,
Totally.
because you could be in a situation where like it's really just not a great time. And it may be a great company, but I think that like, yeah, seeing how different departments are treated or different departments even work, like how smooth, work is like important to sort of figure out maybe beforehand if you can. I don't know how possible that is, but what could you say about getting your foot in the door with a company that's so large, like not even about marketing, but just the company itself?
I think there's a lot of things you can do. First things first, I think just always leave a good impression wherever you are and whenever you can. Like, just at all times. I think even if it's not a company that you maybe right now ever see yourself working for, like, you never know what's going to happen. So I think, like, be careful of where you're leaving bad reviews or sending nasty emails. Like, those things, they stick with you. So I would say just be wary of that. And then at the same hand, like, show appreciation for experiences that are valuable for you. So if you're at a good yoga studio, or if you're going to a good lunch place or whatever, like, write a Google review if it's good. I think there's some sort of like karmic component of putting out good energy. And so
Absolutely.
I think that's important, is just know that your words are going to stick with you, honestly, is like probably the first thing. But I think, if it's a company that you've always admired for a long time, just make friends with people who work there. Like, if it is Lululemon and you see the same people working there every day and you've never talked to them before, like, open up the conversation and ask them how they like working there. Like, ask them how the company treats them. Like, I that's fine. Like, that's a completely fine conversation to have. And I totally think we don't have that conversation enough of like, do you like working there? Do you
Yeah.
like what your life looks like when you're there? So I would say that. And then other things of just, like, sussing out LinkedIn. Like, everybody has so many connections now on LinkedIn. Like, just figure out who you can talk to and who you can start a conversation with, but never be scared to start that conversation.
Yeah. LinkedIn is sort of a tricky, like, situation. I feel like in college for me, so I graduated, what, I don't know, like 2 years ago. Um, but we like LinkedIn was still like foreign to me for some reason. Like in college, I was like, I don't really understand. Is it like Facebook? What is it? And we really worked on building that platform for yourself before you graduate. Like they really stress how important like making those connections are. And sort of to what you were saying, just messaging people and being like, hey, I saw you work at blah, blah, blah. How is that? Do you enjoy it? And I cannot tell you how many messages I've gotten since I've graduated, and just people asking me about what I do for work and if I enjoy it. And I tell them the truth. Like I let them know and I do the best that I can to help, because navigating like the workforce is so difficult. No one really preps you for that. I think like we don't know how to handle even connecting like that. Like messaging someone can feel so awkward and bizarre because it's, you don't want to like impose, but you do want to get information. And I think it is good to make those connections and find people that are similar to you or maybe in the same field as you. But just to even gain the slightest information about something. Like if you reach out to someone and hear that that company is like a good company and you hear otherwise, like it's because you reached out to someone and then you're doing yourself a favor, you know? So I think it's so important to reach out and ask, or just walk into a store and be like, hey, like, yeah, what you said, do you like this? Do you like your life right
Yeah.
now? You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think that's so important.
totally. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's also, it's about time that we start, holding companies to a higher standard too. And I think viewing those conversations as something that we shouldn't talk about is just a disservice to everyone, right? Like if everyone's trying to like hide under the assumption that they have a good working place, but everyone's actually secretly miserable, like
What's
that's
the
not
point?
serving anyone.
Yeah.
Right. What's the point? So I think, it's just all about feedback and getting into real conversations. And something is there's different need everybody has different needs, everyone has different things that they value, and there will be a good company for you, but you do also have to do your own work of figuring out if people are happy where they are and if the company does treat them right.
Yeah. Definitely do your research, I think is the biggest key to all of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So shifting a little bit, so you opened up your own company. I want to talk about that a little bit. You opened up Forever Friday Consulting. So I want to know like what inspired you to do this and what were like the first steps that you took to starting all of it?
Yeah. So I started February of 2020. So I've been in business for like a year and a half now. I
Congrats,
honestly,
congrats.
thank you. I really am passionate about small businesses because I'm passionate about community. Like I just know the formative experiences I had at the small local yoga studio or the local coffee shop. Like I know who those business owners are and I really want to support them. And I know how busy they are and how much they have on their plate. And it was really it was always just something that I found really interesting being at a company like Lululemon and SoulCycle. And there's thousands and thousands of employees to carry out a certain mission. And when you go to your local yoga studio and you go to your local gym or whatever, there it's a lean team and they don't
Yes.
have all the hands to do, all these things. And I always was just like, without like all this venture capital money, how are any of these small companies supposed to grow? Like, how are they actually? They don't have any time to do anything, and their margins are so small that I was like, if they could just only get a little bit of marketing advice, of like real expert advice at a time, and it was made to be digestible information for them, then maybe they could have a real fighting chance. Maybe they really could increase their revenue, but they could also just really like loop in the local community and get people really connected and to get people to feel really happy when they visit these places and just feel, just really connected to their community and to where they live. So I decided, I saw a gap in the market and no one really supporting just small businesses with marketing advice. And of course, I love health and wellness, and I just found myself sort of in that niche. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do, expert marketing advice for small health and wellness companies. And I did. So I started by, just really leveraging my connections, like we said, really just, got into conversations with smaller businesses that I knew and asked them if they needed support. The overwhelming response was yes. So yeah, so just started with, a handful of private clients and yeah, just went from there.
I love that. I actually I think I had a similar experience. I worked in a public relations firm. I was like interning for a public relations firm in my town, and we worked for small businesses and small companies. And I was in college and all I really knew were big brands and corporations and the chains, and didn't really focus on any of the small businesses until I got this job and we were walking, business to business and helping people and sort of doing what you're doing now. To an extent. And I realized, like, yeah, exactly how much these people work and how busy they are and how much they have on their plate and how there's only one or two of them. And I'm like, how are you guys like doing this? You guys are so successful. And I felt a little guilty because I'm like, I clearly don't know you guys well. Like I haven't really been here that much. And since then, I am such a supporter of small businesses and I love going to local spots because I think I have a better appreciation for those people. And I think people that work at bigger chains, that's totally fine. But I just have a better appreciation for people in small businesses, because there is so much they do and people don't realize, So I think that's awesome that
it's hard work.
Yeah. And I think that they probably really appreciate your help and coming to them and thinking of them. So what have you liked the most about sort of opening the aspect of it being your own company?
Mm. Wow, that's such a good question. I think honestly, just really being able to identify the values that I want to carry out as a leader. So for the people, that work for me, but also as the clients that I want to align with, and kind of what I help them carry out. So for example, like a core value of mine is inclusivity. And it's awesome that I'm able to work with small businesses that maybe otherwise would not have had, in their marketing strategy, because maybe they just couldn't, like, not because they didn't want to, but because they just didn't have the time on their hands, or they couldn't, figure it out. But getting them to be able to work on like a pride campaign or anything, like whatever it is, like Father's Day campaigns, whatever it is, like that has been really fun for me, being able to carry out kind of the core values that I have into these other companies.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. How have you seen your company grow, and like what were sort of those like struggles when you first began? Because I think opening and starting your own business is really scary for a lot of people. And I think a lot of us have dreams and hopes of doing that. And you really like went for it and did it. But what were those initial like bumps in the road, or were there any?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, I started my company in February of 2020, working for small boutique fitness studios. March 2020
Mhm.
was not the best time to do that. So, all of my clients that I had, not all of them, about 50% of them needed to pause their marketing spend completely. And so all like I had quit my corporate job, all of this income that I thought I was going to have, I just didn't have. So I was like, "Oh my god, did I really just do this?" And it is such a blessing in disguise, because I was like, "Okay, hold on. Let me reevaluate sort of what my business model is." And just got to work on creating a marketing course for smaller businesses, because I knew that they needed to understand how to do these things, but they just like couldn't figure it out. So I was like, why don't I just do a 5-week marketing course? Like, let me just do that. So I enrolled all these groups and we all did it together, and it was so much fun. And I still to this day host this marketing course. And it's live, it's over Zoom. We go through all of the modules, everything you need to cover in marketing for a small business, all the foundations you need to set up. And I never would have had that idea had it not been for, this massive roadblock of COVID. So it really changed my business model essentially. And yeah.
Yeah, you really can't anticipate a pandemic. So,
Nope.
like, didn't see that one
No.
coming. Well, that's good that you had that idea. I mean, I think that's a great option, and I think that's very vital for many companies to have sort of just like a breakdown of everything. And I think when people get into business, they got into business for a reason, and sometimes they don't exactly know how to market themselves or put themselves out there, and they don't know how to navigate like the social media world and things like that. So I think that's a great idea that you had, and I'm sure it's so super successful. You also do like one-on-ones, right? Can you talk a little bit more about why you find like those really important too?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I work with people through one-on-one clients and through the marketing course. So one-on-one clients, I'm just obsessed with my clients. But we'll meet like once a week for an hour, and we'll go through everything from their acquisition strategy to their retention efforts. And a lot of that is, for the first 20 minutes, we really pour over their numbers. So if it's whatever it is, like I have many clients that are totally virtual, and then I have many that are studios. So either, we'll look at your first timer reports, and we'll go through and look at like all the people that came to your studio for the first time. And, in the month of May, did they return? And when they returned, what did they purchase? And so we really make many tweaks, like very small tweaks, but tweaks nonetheless that will shift the business. So it's very analytical over like exactly what that business requires for their marketing. So that's definitely the option if someone needs a little bit more hand holding, but also if they have been in business for a little bit longer. So the course is really good for people who are just starting out or, have never really considered their marketing journey or their client journey or anything like that. And then the one-on-ones are really good if you've been in business for a bit and need to get to the next level.
Okay, awesome. So you mentioned you have virtual clients. So you're centered in
Mhm.
California right now, but you do take clients anywhere?
Anywhere. Yeah. I have clients
Okay.
in Canada, New York, California. It's all over Zoom pretty much. Unless, of course, like I have a few clients in Santa Barbara and we've gotten to have lunch recently, which is amazing.
In person? What?
In person. I know.
Crazy.
Yeah. So the majority of meetings happen on Zoom unless I am there and then we get to meet in person.
That's awesome though that you're able to kind of connect with other people around the country and stuff and still be able
Mhm.
to work and stuff.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. I got my first Canadian client recently and I was like, wow, am I international?
yeah, you are. That's awesome. Um, so what is like the biggest tip I think that or what is the biggest tip that you give clients like initially, um, just about like marketing themselves in the best way? Like what's something that you can share with
Mhm.
us today?
Keep it simple. I feel like this is something I'm telling clients constantly. We are in our businesses 24 hours a day. If you run your own thing, anything, like you work for a corporation, but you also run your own podcast, like your podcast is your business, keep it simple. Every single person thinks that, because we're in it, like if you just ask somebody to explain something like very, very quickly, explain their business, most business owners have trouble doing that. So, like, everybody really needs to get like this one tweet or less, like very, very clear mission statement down. And just keep that as like the core messaging. Like that is definitely, I think, the biggest mistake I see of people being like, well, I offer this and then I also offer this. And sometimes I really like this and blah, blah, blah. And then it goes on and on and on, And
And
I'm
you're
like,
like,
no,
what is your
you're
company? I don't know what that
right.
means.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, you're a Pilates studio because you want to help people with mobility issues and that's it. Or, like
Yeah.
whatever the issue is, like keep it simple.
That's so interesting that they like can't obviously they're so passionate about it. They opened a company, but it's like hard for them to even explain to people and stuff. It's sort of like you need an elevator pitch, like a real quick,
Yeah.
like
No, everyone
simple.
does.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So moving into your own podcast, do you host like a health and fitness centered podcast? Obviously you're very passionate about that. So what kind of gave you that push to start your own podcast about it?
Yeah. So I started the podcast in December of 2020 and it was a really rough time in New York. Like it was freezing. We had just come off of the pandemic and it was just bad. It was like March and April in New York 2020 were so traumatic. And then we had a little bit of a glimmer of hope in the summer. And then it got really cold again. Studios still weren't open. And I was like, we're all missing the connection of each other. And I also knew that there were a lot of instructors and studio owners that were just so burnt out. They were trying to keep it going over Zoom, but they couldn't. And it was rough. And I was like, there's no one place where everyone is just talking about like the fitness industry and what they can do, especially the boutique fitness industry. So I was like, let me just start it. Like I had enough connections and friends that were super happy to come on and chat about all these things and these issues and give advice to other people. So that was it. I was just like, all right, let me just do it. And that's it. It's been 6 months and it is so much fun. I am blown away at the people that I've been able to connect with and talk to. So it is, yeah, wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, you've had on some really, I think, incredible people. And I think that it is important for like, first of all, so like thoughtful of you to be like, these people are struggling and there's nowhere for everyone to like be talking about this. Let me start something so that we can like what? Okay. Love that. But I think like it's such a positive space and it's your podcast, you're learning something in every single episode. And it's like, it's motivational and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I just really like the space that you've like sort of created in like the community.
Thank you.
What has been like your favorite part about having it and like meeting all of these business owners?
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I think just the the differences in the people that have been on are so interesting, and their unique takes on what makes a business successful and what, a lot of the times people are like, look, I did this and I would never do that again. Like that has been
Yeah.
really valuable to hear. But I think really like one of my favorite parts is I ask everybody, what the best business advice is they ever got. And the things that have come out of that are just so eye-opening that I feel like it's my own like mini business training.
Yeah. First of all, I personally love having a podcast because I'm meeting all these people and you're gaining all of these different perspectives. And
Mhm.
with yours, it's like exactly that. Like you're gaining different perspectives on running a business and you're learning different things that you like one person wouldn't know and the other one does. And like, I just find that so interesting. Like, it's just such a
Yeah.
fun, like conversation. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. I love it.
So where do you see the podcast going and like what is your goal like
Mhm.
moving forward with everything?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think honestly, I'm just really happy with where the company is at right now. I'm always open for new clients. And if people are curious, they can send me a DM and see if we have the availability. But I really am just so passionate about helping smaller businesses. So definitely, would like to see where that goes. And if I have the capacity to hire on another coordinator to like, just really scale up our one-on-one clients. The podcast, I mean, I have such an amazing list of huge fitness names and just like really motivational people that I'm so excited to have on and just talk to them. And I really just can't believe like how lucky I am. Like I had one future guest, I can't say who she is yet, but I have one future guest that I was in my car when her agent emailed me back that she would be in, and I was like screaming in the car. Like it was just so happy about it. And like I'm
Literally the best
so
feeling. Yeah.
the best. And I'm like just so not cool about it. And that's totally fine. Like I'm just so excited. But yeah, I mean, just honestly, I'm loving what I'm doing. So I think just, keeping it going and keeping it growing.
Absolutely. Well, you have such a positive like outlook on everything and I have no doubt that you're going to be like even more successful than you are. I find you and your journey very inspirational. I think like you've really worked so hard to get where you are and then you've really found like a passion in what you do and I think a lot of us aspire to find passion in what we do for a living.
Mm.
So I congratulate you on that because that
Thank
is
you.
sometimes very hard to find. So
Thank you.
good for you. And you're doing great work. And I'm sure all of these businesses really do appreciate what you do for them. But I want to let people know where to find you. So where can they follow you, reach out to you, DM you if they need consulting, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So on Instagram at foreverfriday.co, .co. So that is where I post just a lot of like free marketing advice, like how to build your funnels and what your strategy should look like. And then my personal account is at Alexa Cawley, and the podcast is the Friday Society. So, definitely if you're into health and wellness, whether as a spectator or a participant or a business owner, definitely is a fun one to check out.
And I will tag all of those in the show notes. So you guys can follow her because she's a great follow and her podcast is amazing. So definitely check that out. Thank you so much for coming on today. I love
Thank
talking to you. I'm
you.
like so inspired right now.
Oh, thank
I hope
you.
that you guys listening are too, because this is just, I don't know, I just love this kind of stuff. Like it's just so motivating that um, you've gotten to where you are like on your own accord. And I think that's amazing. So
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. And good luck on all your future endeavors.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.